long before the first kingdom was crowned, long before the pyramids rose above the Egyptian desert, long before Rome, Greece, or even the oldest surviving civilizations recorded their history. There was already a name whispered across the Indian subcontinent, a name surrounded by silence, by mountains, by fire, and by mystery. Shiva. To some, he is the destroyer. To others, he is the great yogi, the lord of meditation, the master of time, the father of yoga, the cosmic dancer, the one who lives beyond life and beyond death. But how can one being represent destruction and peace, creation, and the end of all creation at the same time? Who was Shiva? Was he born from mythology? Or did his story begin thousands of years before the first Hindu scriptures were ever written? Some archaeologists believe symbols connected to Shiva may reach back more than 4,000 years, to one of the world's oldest civilizations. Others argue the evidence is far more complicated. Ancient texts describe him as eternal, without beginning, without end. Historians search for answers in forgotten manuscripts. Archaeologists search beneath layers of ancient cities. Pilgrims search in the silence of the Himalayas. Yet after centuries of study, the mystery remains, because Shiva is unlike almost any figure in human history. He wears serpents as ornaments, meditates upon frozen mountains, holds the river Ganga in his hair, carries a trident, opens a third eye capable of destroying entire worlds, yet is remembered as the embodiment of inner peace. For thousands of years, kings, saints, warriors, scholars, and ordinary people alike have bowed before the same mysterious figure. His temples stand across India, Nepal, Southeast Asia, and far beyond. His stories have shaped civilizations, inspired philosophy, influenced art, music, dance, yoga, and the spiritual lives of hundreds of millions of people. But separating history from legend has never been easy. In this documentary, we ask the questions that historians, archaeologists, and scholars continue to explore. Who is Lord Shiva? How old is Shiva worship? Did the worship of Shiva begin before the Vedas? Is the mysterious Pashupati Seal really the earliest image of Shiva? How did Rudra become Mahadeva? Why is Mount Kailash considered his eternal home? Which parts of Shiva's story are supported by history, and which belong to faith and sacred tradition? Throughout this documentary, we will explore the evidence using archaeological discoveries from the Indus Valley Civilization, ancient Vedic literature, the Upanishads, the Puranas, historical records, comparative mythology, modern archaeological and historical scholarship. Where evidence is strong, we will present it clearly. Where historians disagree, we will explain the competing interpretations. And where belief begins, we will distinguish it respectfully from established historical evidence. Because to understand Lord Shiva, we must travel beyond kingdoms, beyond written history, beyond civilization itself, to a time when humanity was only beginning to ask its oldest questions about life, death, creation, and the infinite. Only then can we begin to understand the mystery of Shiva. After asking who Shiva was, our journey cannot begin with the Vedas. It cannot begin with the Puranas, and it cannot even begin with the earliest Hindu temples. Instead, our search leads us much further back, to a civilization that disappeared thousands of years before many of history's greatest empires were born. Nearly 5,000 years ago, while pyramids were still rising in Egypt, an extraordinary civilization flourished along the Indus River. Today, archaeologists call it the Indus Valley Civilization. It stretched across what is now Pakistan and northwestern India, covering more than 1 million square kilometers. Its great cities, Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Dhalavira, were among the largest and most sophisticated urban centers of the Bronze Age. Their streets followed carefully planned grids. Homes were built from standardized baked bricks. Advanced drainage systems carried wastewater beneath the city. Public wells supplied clean water. Everything suggested remarkable organization. Yet despite all this progress, the civilization left behind one enormous mystery. Its writing has never been fully deciphered. Thousands of inscriptions survive. Hundreds of carved seals have been recovered, but no one can read them with certainty. Without written records, their beliefs remain hidden. Archaeologists have uncovered the Great Bath, terracotta figurines, ritual objects, stone platforms, and countless animal carvings. Each discovery offers another clue, but none tells the complete story. Among all these discoveries, one tiny object would attract more attention than any other. No larger than the palm of a hand, it shows a mysterious seated figure, surrounded by wild animals, sitting in what appears to be a meditative posture. Some scholars believe this may represent an early form of Shiva. Others argue the evidence is far from conclusive. That small object, known today as the Pashupati Seal, would become one of the most debated artifacts in Indian archaeology. If it truly represents Shiva, then his story reaches back thousands of years before the earliest Hindu scriptures. If not, then one of history's greatest mysteries still awaits an answer. And that mystery begins with a single carved seal. The object itself is surprisingly small, barely larger than the palm of a hand. Yet for more than a century, this tiny piece of carved stone has remained at the center of one of archaeology's greatest debates. It was discovered during the excavations of Mohenjo-daro, one of the largest cities of the Indus Valley Civilization. The year was 1928. By then, archaeologists had already uncovered thousands of artifacts buried beneath the ancient streets. Pottery, beads, tools, figurines, and hundreds of carefully carved seals. Most of these seals were probably used in trade. Some may have marked ownership. Others perhaps carried religious meaning. But among all of them, one immediately captured the attention of researchers. It was carved from a soft white stone known as steatite. After carving, the seal had been heated to harden its surface. Despite surviving for more than 4,000 years, its details remained remarkably clear. At the very center sat a mysterious human figure. Unlike the standing figures found on many ancient artifacts, this one appeared seated. Its legs were folded outward in a posture that reminded some scholars of meditation. The hands rested upon the knees. The body faced forward, and upon its head rose a large pair of curved horns unlike anything commonly seen in later Hindu art. Surrounding the figure were powerful wild animals: an elephant, a tiger, a rhinoceros, a buffalo, and beneath the seat, two deer faced one another in perfect symmetry. Nothing about the composition appeared accidental. Every animal seemed carefully placed, every line deliberately carved. Whoever created this seal wanted the central figure to command authority over the natural world. But who was this mysterious being? For several years, no one could answer that question. Then, British archaeologist Sir John Marshall proposed an idea that would transform the debate forever. After studying the seal, Marshall suggested that the seated figure might represent an early form of Shiva. He noticed several striking similarities. The cross-legged posture reminded him of yogic meditation. The surrounding animals suggested mastery over nature. Later Hindu tradition would give Shiva one of his many titles, Pashupati, meaning the Lord of Animals. To Marshall, the similarities seemed too remarkable to ignore. If he was correct, this tiny seal could push the origins of Shiva worship back more than 4,000 years, making it one of the oldest religious images ever connected to Hindu tradition. The idea spread quickly. Books repeated it. Historians discussed it. And for many people, the Pashupati Seal became known as the earliest image of Lord Shiva. But archaeology rarely offers simple answers. Not everyone agreed with Marshall's interpretation. Many modern scholars urged caution. They pointed out that the Indus script has never been deciphered. No inscription identifies the figure. No surviving text mentions its name. Without written evidence, its identity remains unknown. Some researchers believe the figure represents a local ruler. Others suggest a priest. Some argue it may depict a forgotten deity, whose name disappeared thousands of years ago along with the civilization itself. A few scholars even question whether the seated posture truly represents meditation at all. Perhaps it does. Perhaps it does not. The truth is, no one can say with certainty, and that uncertainty is exactly what makes the Pashupati Seal so fascinating. It sits at the crossroads between archaeology, history, and faith. For some, it offers the earliest glimpse of Shiva. For others, it is simply a masterpiece of Bronze Age art whose true meaning has been lost forever. More than a century after its discovery, the debate continues. Archaeologists still examine its carvings. Historians continue comparing it with later religious traditions. And scholars still ask the same question first raised generations ago. Was this truly Shiva, looking back at us from the dawn of civilization? Or are we seeing connections that never actually existed? Perhaps the Pashupati Seal preserves humanity's earliest image of Shiva. Or perhaps it represents something entirely different. Perhaps the answer does not lie within the Indus Valley at all. If the mysterious seal cannot tell us with certainty who its central figure was, then we must continue our search elsewhere, not beneath buried cities, but within the oldest surviving sacred literature of India. Thousands of years after the cities of the Indus Valley had faded into history, new traditions began taking shape across the northern Indian subcontinent. Communities gathered around sacred fires. Priests carefully memorized hymns that would be passed from one generation to the next. For centuries, these verses existed only in human memory. Long before they were ever written down, they were spoken aloud with extraordinary precision. Together, these hymns became known as the Rigveda, the oldest surviving text of the Vedas, and one of humanity's oldest religious works. Yet anyone searching its pages for the name Shiva may be surprised. The great god worshipped by millions today is almost nowhere to be found. Instead, another name appears. Rudra, powerful, unpredictable, and deeply feared. Unlike the peaceful image of Shiva sitting in meditation upon Mount Kailash, Rudra is introduced as a fierce deity of storms and wild nature. The Vedic hymns describe him as swift as the wind, armed with bow and arrows, capable of bringing disease, lightning, and sudden death. When storms swept across the land, when illness spread through a village, or when disaster struck without warning, many believed Rudra's power was at work. Yet the Vedas describe something remarkable. The same deity who could bring suffering was also asked to remove it. Again and again, the hymns plead with Rudra not to unleash his anger. Instead, they ask him for healing, for protection, for mercy. One famous prayer asks him to spare both people and animals, to keep families safe, and to drive away sickness. This strange dual nature made Rudra unlike almost every other Vedic deity. He was feared, but also deeply respected, dangerous, yet compassionate, a destroyer who could also restore life. Over time, these qualities continued to grow. As Vedic religion evolved through the centuries, Rudra gradually began taking on new meanings. Later Vedic texts, especially portions of the Yajurveda, began using another word alongside his name, Shiva. In Sanskrit, the word Shiva carries meanings such as auspicious, gracious, or benevolent. What had once been used as a respectful title slowly became the name by which the deity would eventually be known. Rather than replacing Rudra, the two identities gradually merged. The fierce god of storms became the compassionate lord of transformation. The terrifying archer became the great yogi. The wild force of nature became the guardian of meditation, wisdom, and inner peace. This transformation did not happen overnight. It unfolded gradually across many centuries. As beliefs evolved, new philosophical ideas emerged, and sacred traditions blended together. Historians see this as one of the most fascinating developments in the history of religion. Instead of creating an entirely new god, ancient India slowly reshaped an older one. The evidence for this transformation comes directly from the Vedic texts themselves. The hymns of the Rigveda, the prayers preserved in the Yajurveda, and centuries of careful oral tradition passed from teacher to student long before these works were ever written down. These texts allow historians to trace how Rudra slowly became identified with Shiva, one of the most important deities in later Hindu tradition. Yet even here, questions remain. Did Rudra and Shiva begin as the same divine figure? Or were two separate traditions gradually woven together over time? Scholars continue to debate the answer. What is clear is that the fearsome Rudra of the earliest Vedic hymns would not remain unchanged forever. Across the centuries, his character continued to grow, his symbolism deepened, and his identity expanded far beyond the storm god first described in the Rigveda. The terrifying Rudra slowly became the compassionate Shiva, but the transformation did not end there. Over the centuries, the figure once known simply as Rudra continued to evolve. As new ideas emerged, new scriptures were composed, and Hindu philosophy grew more sophisticated. Shiva's role expanded far beyond that of a storm deity. He became something much greater, not merely a god of destruction, but one of the supreme forces governing the universe itself. Many of these new ideas appear in a remarkable collection of sacred texts known as the Puranas. Composed and expanded over many centuries, the Puranas preserved ancient traditions, religious teachings, cosmology, genealogies, and countless stories that shaped Hindu belief. Among them, two texts became especially important for understanding Shiva: the Shiva Purana and the Linga Purana. Unlike the earliest Vedic hymns, these texts no longer describe Shiva as a distant and fearsome force of nature. Instead, they present him as Mahadeva, the great god, a being who exists beyond time itself, without beginning, without end. According to these traditions, creation does not move in a straight line. The universe is born, it grows, it fades, and eventually it is renewed once again. Within this endless cosmic cycle, Shiva plays a unique role. He is often called the destroyer, but this title is frequently misunderstood. In Hindu philosophy, destruction is not simply the end of existence. It is transformation. Just as autumn leaves fall, so new life can emerge in spring. The old must sometimes disappear before something new can begin. Shiva represents that eternal process of change, not destruction for its own sake, but destruction that makes renewal possible. Around the same period, another important idea became increasingly popular: the concept of the Trimurti, three great cosmic deities, each representing a different aspect of the universe. Brahma, the creator; Vishnu, the preserver; and Shiva, the transformer. Together, they symbolize the endless rhythm of creation, preservation, and transformation that governs all existence. Although different Hindu traditions understand the Trimurti in different ways, the idea helped establish Shiva as one of the central figures of Hindu thought. The Puranas also introduced many of the stories that millions of people continue to know today. They describe Shiva living upon Mount Kailash with his wife, Parvati. Together they became symbols of balance, strength, and devotion. Their sons, Ganesha and Kartikeya, each developed their own important place within Hindu tradition. Around them grew a sacred family, whose stories have been told for centuries through festivals, poetry, music, dance, and temple rituals across India. Another powerful symbol also became closely connected with Shiva: the Shiva Linga. For millions of Hindus, the linga is not simply an object of worship. It represents the eternal, formless, and infinite nature of Shiva. Ancient texts describe it as a symbol that points beyond ordinary human understanding, toward the limitless reality from which all creation emerges. Across India, temples dedicated to Shiva began appearing in increasing numbers. Some were carved into mountainsides. Others were built from enormous blocks of stone. Kings, dynasties, and ordinary communities all contributed to their construction. From the snow-covered Himalayas to the southern shores of India, the worship of Shiva spread across the subcontinent. Historical records, inscriptions, and temple architecture all reveal how deeply these traditions became woven into Indian civilization. By the early medieval period, Shiva was no longer worshipped only as an ancient Vedic deity. He had become one of the most influential spiritual figures in Asia. His image inspired philosophers, poets, artists, yogis, and countless generations seeking answers about life, death, and the nature of the universe. The evidence for this remarkable transformation comes from many different sources. The Puranas, temple inscriptions, ancient sculptures, historical records, religious traditions passed from generation to generation. Together, they reveal how the mysterious Rudra of the Rigveda gradually became the Mahadeva worshipped by millions today. He was no longer understood only as a force of nature. He became a guide for spiritual awakening, a symbol of transformation, a reminder that every ending carries the possibility of a new beginning. Shiva had become far more than a god. He had become a complete philosophy. But every philosophy has its symbols. Every civilization has its sacred places. And for millions of followers of Shiva, no place is more sacred than a single mountain standing high upon the Tibetan plateau. Far beyond the crowded cities of India, beyond fertile valleys, and beyond the snow-covered passes of the Himalayas, rises Mount Kailash. Unlike Everest, it is not the tallest mountain in the world, nor is it the most difficult to climb. Yet for thousands of years, it has inspired a level of reverence unlike almost any other mountain on earth. According to Hindu tradition, Mount Kailash is the eternal home of Lord Shiva. It is here, far above the ordinary world, that Shiva is believed to dwell with his consort Parvati. Ancient texts describe the mountain not simply as a geographical location, but as a meeting place between the earthly and the divine, a place where silence becomes meditation and where the material world gives way to the spiritual. For countless devotees, Kailash is more than a destination. It is a symbol of the highest spiritual state a person can seek. The mountain's towering summit represents the stillness of the mind, while the vast wilderness surrounding it reminds pilgrims of the path each soul must travel in search of truth. Because of this belief, millions have dreamed of reaching Mount Kailash. Yet, remarkably, their goal has never been to stand upon its summit. Instead, they walk around it. This sacred journey is known as the Kailash Kora, a pilgrimage of approximately 52 kilometers that circles the mountain through high valleys, rocky passes, and some of the harshest landscapes on earth. For many pilgrims, every step becomes an act of devotion. Some complete the circuit only once in their lifetime. Others return again and again, believing that each journey brings them closer to spiritual purification. The mountain itself remains untouched. Unlike the world's famous climbing peaks, Mount Kailash has no celebrated summit expeditions, no permanent climbing routes, no triumphant photographs taken from its highest point. For centuries, the summit has remained exactly as nature left it. Modern governments have reinforced this tradition by prohibiting recreational climbing. But long before official regulations existed, religious belief had already protected the mountain. To many devotees, climbing Kailash would not be considered an achievement. It would be viewed as a violation of something sacred. This distinction is important. Historical evidence confirms that Mount Kailash has been a major pilgrimage destination for centuries. Ancient religious texts, pilgrim accounts, and historical travel records all describe its spiritual importance. What history cannot prove, however, is whether Shiva literally resides upon the mountain. That belongs to the realm of religious faith rather than historical investigation. Throughout this documentary, we have distinguished carefully between evidence and belief. The same principle applies here. Historians can study how the tradition developed. Archaeologists can examine ancient pilgrimage routes. Researchers can document centuries of devotion. But questions of spiritual truth remain matters of personal faith. Even so, few places on earth demonstrate the power of belief more clearly than Mount Kailash. Its influence extends far beyond religion. It has inspired poetry, art, music, philosophy, and countless personal journeys across generations. For some, it is the throne of Mahadeva. For others, it is one of the world's most extraordinary natural landscapes. Yet regardless of how it is understood, its place within the story of Shiva cannot be separated from its timeless presence beneath the Himalayan sky. Whether one sees the sacred home of a god or simply a mountain of ancient stone, Mount Kailash remains at the very heart of Shiva's story. Yet Mount Kailash is only one part of Shiva's identity. Across India, inside ancient caves, upon temple walls, and in countless sculptures carved over many centuries. Shiva appears again and again. At first glance, his appearance seems unlike that of any other deity. He carries unusual objects, wears strange ornaments, and possesses features that appear almost impossible. A third eye, a serpent around his neck, a crescent moon resting in his hair, the sacred river Ganga flowing from his head, a blue throat, a trident in one hand, a small drum in the other. Beside him stands a silent white bull. To someone seeing these images for the first time, they may seem like simple artistic decorations. But within Hindu philosophy, every symbol carries a deeper meaning. Nothing appears by accident. Perhaps the most recognizable of all is the Trishula, the sacred trident. Ancient texts and later philosophical traditions offer several interpretations. Many describe its 3 points as representing creation, preservation, and transformation. Others connect them with the past, the present, and the future. Still others see them as symbols of body, mind, and spirit, rather than representing violence. The Trishula reminds devotees that every aspect of existence remains connected within a single cosmic order. Equally famous is Shiva's third eye. According to the Puranas, this eye does not merely see the physical world. It represents higher awareness, inner wisdom, and the ability to perceive truth beyond ordinary human sight. Stories tell that when the third eye opened, it released a fire powerful enough to destroy illusion itself. For many philosophers, this is understood symbolically rather than literally. The destruction is not simply of the world, but of ignorance. Resting quietly within Shiva's hair is the crescent moon. Its changing phases remind humanity that time moves in endless cycles. Growth, decline, death, and renewal. While everything else changes, Shiva remains eternal. The moon, therefore, becomes a symbol of time existing beneath the infinite. Flowing from his matted hair is another powerful symbol, the sacred river Ganga. According to Hindu tradition, the heavenly river descended from the heavens with such overwhelming force that it would have destroyed the earth. To protect humanity, Shiva received the river within his hair, allowing its waters to flow gently across the world. Whether understood as sacred history or spiritual symbolism, the story reflects compassion, protection, and the power to transform destructive force into life-giving energy. Around Shiva's neck, a serpent rests calmly. Across many cultures, snakes inspire fear. Yet Shiva wears one without hesitation. In Hindu philosophy, the serpent often represents mastery over fear, desire, death, and the powerful life energy known as Kundalini. Rather than fleeing danger, Shiva remains completely undisturbed by it. Another unforgettable feature is his blue throat. Ancient texts tell of the great cosmic event known as the churning of the ocean. During this process, a deadly poison emerged that threatened all creation. To save the universe, Shiva drank the poison. Rather than allowing it to spread through his body, he held it within his throat. From that moment, he became known as Nilkant, the blue-throated one. For many believers, the story symbolizes sacrifice, compassion, and the willingness to absorb suffering in order to protect others. In one hand, Shiva often carries a small hourglass-shaped drum called the damaru. Its rhythmic sound is believed to represent the first vibration of creation. Many philosophical traditions compare this sacred rhythm to the pulse of the universe itself. Creation begins, life unfolds, time moves forward, all through an eternal cosmic rhythm. Standing faithfully beside Shiva is Nandi, the sacred white bull. More than a companion, Nandi represents loyalty, strength, patience, and unwavering devotion. Visitors to Shiva temples often pause before Nandi, looking through the bull toward the shrine beyond. The symbolism is profound. Faith, like Nandi, must remain steady before reaching the divine. These symbols have appeared for centuries in temple sculptures, ancient paintings, bronze statues, and sacred literature throughout India and beyond. Art historians study how they developed over time. Religious texts explain their spiritual meaning. Temple traditions continue preserving them generation after generation. Together, they transformed Shiva into one of the most recognizable spiritual figures in human history. Yet perhaps their greatest purpose is not to describe how Shiva looks, but what he represents, because every object, every ornament, and every sacred symbol points toward an idea far greater than itself. Every symbol of Shiva tells a story far deeper than appearance alone. Perhaps that is why Shiva continues to inspire not only devotees, but also philosophers, artists, and even some scientists, not because science has proven the existence of Shiva, but because many find his symbolism remarkably profound. Among all the forms in which Shiva is worshipped, one stands apart from the rest. Natraja, the lord of the cosmic dance. For more than 1,000 years, artists across India have portrayed Shiva dancing within a great circle of fire. One foot rests firmly upon the ground, the other is raised gracefully into the air. One hand beats the sacred damaru, while another holds the flame of destruction. A third offers reassurance. A fourth points toward liberation. Beneath his feet lies a small figure, representing ignorance, the illusion that prevents humanity from seeing reality as it truly is. To the casual observer, it appears to be an extraordinary work of ancient art. But to generations of philosophers, every movement within this dance carries meaning. The dance begins creation. It sustains existence. It transforms the universe. And when one cosmic age ends, it prepares the way for another to begin. Nothing remains permanent. Everything moves in an endless rhythm of birth, change, destruction, and renewal. Centuries after these ideas first appeared, they attracted attention far beyond the world of religion. In the early 21st century, a bronze statue of Natraja was installed outside the European Organization for Nuclear Research, better known as CERN, near Geneva, Switzerland. The statue was presented as a gift from India, celebrating both Indian culture and international scientific cooperation. Its presence quickly sparked curiosity around the world. Many people wondered, why would one of the world's leading centers for particle physics display a statue of Shiva? The answer is often misunderstood. CERN did not install the statue because physics had somehow proven the existence of Shiva. Nor does the statue suggest that Hindu scriptures contain modern scientific discoveries. Instead, many physicists and historians admired the symbolism. The cosmic dance of Natraja offered a poetic way of thinking about a universe that is constantly changing. Particles appear, interact, transform, and disappear. Stars are born. They shine for millions of years, and eventually collapse, giving rise to new generations of stars. Across nature, change never truly stops. For some scientists, the image of Shiva's dance serves as a powerful metaphor for this continuous process. A metaphor, not scientific evidence. This distinction is essential. Modern science depends upon observation, experimentation, measurement, and evidence. Religious symbolism speaks through meaning, philosophy, and spiritual experience. The two answer different kinds of questions. One explores how the universe works. The other asks why existence carries meaning. Confusing these two approaches often creates misunderstanding. The same careful distinction applies to meditation and yoga. Today, millions of people around the world practice both. Modern medical research suggests that meditation may help reduce stress, improve attention, and support mental well-being in many individuals. Yoga has also been widely studied for its benefits to flexibility, balance, and overall physical health. These findings do not prove the spiritual claims found within Hindu tradition, nor do they diminish them. They simply demonstrate that certain ancient practices continue to hold value when examined through modern research. Historians of art, philosophers, and scholars continue studying Shiva because his symbolism reaches far beyond one period of history. The image of Natraja, the stillness of meditation, the cycle of creation and transformation, all continue to inspire new interpretations across cultures. Each generation discovers something different. Some see theology, others see philosophy, Some find artistic beauty. Others find personal reflection. Perhaps that is why Shiva remains one of humanity's most enduring symbols. Not because science has confirmed every sacred tradition, and not because philosophy can answer every question of faith, but because the ideas represented by Shiva continue to speak to people across different cultures and different ages. Science does not prove Shiva, but many find his symbolism remarkably timeless. Perhaps that timeless symbolism explains why the story of Shiva has endured for so long. Across this journey, we have traveled through thousands of years of history, from the silent ruins of the Indus Valley to the sacred hymns of the Vedas, from the rise of Mahadeva in the Puranas to the snow-covered slopes of Mount Kailash, and finally, to the modern world, where Shiva continues to inspire philosophers, artists, scientists, and millions of devotees across the globe. Along the way, we discovered that the story of Shiva is not confined to a single moment in history. It is a story that evolved across centuries. Archaeologists uncovered mysterious artifacts that may, or may not, represent his earliest image. The Vedic hymns introduced us to Rudra, the fierce deity whose character gradually transformed over time. The Puranas revealed Mahadeva, the great god, whose influence reached every corner of Hindu philosophy. We explored Mount Kailash, the sacred mountain that millions believe to be his eternal home. We examined the trident, the third eye, the river Ganga, the serpent, the Damara, and every symbol that has helped define Shiva for countless generations. Together, these discoveries reveal a tradition of extraordinary depth, one that has continued to grow while remaining connected to its ancient roots. History allows us to say certain things with confidence. The worship of Shiva is undeniably ancient. Rudra appears within the earliest layers of Vedic literature. Over many centuries, that figure gradually developed into Shiva, one of the principal deities of Hinduism. Ancient temples, inscriptions, sculptures, and sacred texts all testify to the immense influence Shiva has had upon Indian civilization. Archaeological discoveries also suggest that many ideas associated with Shiva reach deep into antiquity, although scholars continue debating exactly how far those connections extend. Yet history also recognizes its limits. No archaeologist can say with certainty that the Pashupati Seal truly depicts Shiva. No historian can identify the exact moment when Shiva worship first began. No surviving document fully explains how the many regional traditions, beliefs, and philosophies gradually merged into the rich spiritual tradition known today. Some questions remain unanswered, and perhaps they always will. But uncertainty should not be mistaken for weakness. History follows evidence wherever it leads. Faith follows meaning. The two are not always asking the same questions. One seeks to understand what happened. The other seeks to understand why it matters. For thousands of years, people have approached Shiva from both directions. Long before archaeologists uncovered the cities of the Indus Valley, long before scholars translated ancient Sanskrit manuscripts, long before historians attempted to reconstruct India's distant past, millions were already offering prayers to Shiva. Some see in him the gradual evolution of an ancient deity across history. Others see the eternal Mahadeva, existing beyond time, beyond creation, and beyond history itself. Whatever one's beliefs, few figures have shaped human civilization as profoundly. His influence lives in philosophy, literature, music, dance, temple architecture, yoga, meditation, and the spiritual lives of hundreds of millions of people. Empires have risen, empires have fallen, languages have changed, kingdoms have disappeared, yet the name of Shiva continues to echo across the centuries. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not who Shiva was, but why his presence continues to inspire humanity. After thousands of years,